Hey guys, welcome to the master class of the waist angle. As I went over in the overview video, the waist angle is an incredibly important measurement, or two measurements between the front waist and the back waist. And the difference between those two measurements determines what the angle of the waist is. This is something that's really beautiful because it's a gem of a detail and adjustment that pays off big time. It is also something that really isn't accounted for to a very good degree on off-the-rack clothing. So for someone who has a little more weight on them or just has a more of an odd kind of posture in their waist angle, which accounts for probably over 35% of our clients, that this really captures it and makes that trouser that much better for them. And when the trouser fits well, the jacket looks good. And when the jacket looks good, the trouser looks well. So we want both to look great. So let's dive into it and let's get a little deeper into exactly how the actual waist angle works. So I have my nice anchor strap here. You being taught already or you're about to be taught, the actual waist strap here sets a nice straight parallel angle across my body. This is exactly the same distance to the floor in the front as is in the back, make it nice and straight. So it's a nice anchor leveling spot that we can adjust to. When we do take the front waist and the back waist measurement, the front waist measurement is just simply from the midpoint to the top of the waistband. The back waist is the same from the anchor point to the top of the waistband. And the difference between those two measurements, the front waist minus the back waist, determines the eventual adjustment that the tailors will make based on a lot of stuff on the pattern side on their end. So for these, we want to make sure that when we look at this to articulate the difference between the two is when I actually have a more of a normal stance here, you can see the front waist and the back waist is not very different at all. But when I have, say, more of a belly or just more of an actual really prominent kind of backed out seat here, that it goes from more of a normal waist angle to like that. You can see the front waist distance gets bigger while the back waist distance stays the same or gets a little smaller, making the difference between the front and back waist that much different and larger, telling the tailors exactly how they should adjust it. And the exact same works for the opposite end. So to show that, if I have simply bit of a normal regular stance here, just slightly angled. If I have more pushed out hips like that, you can see that the front waist gets shorter and is either equal to the back waist or even smaller than the back waist actual measurement. And the difference between those two, the minus of it or the negativeness of it, really nets out to what's called either a normal waist angle or a higher front waist by a centimeter or two. So that's how we actually get to the point of understanding what the waist angle is on our client. And when that happens, as I just demonstrated in the overview video, is when you take a U-rise. U-rise should always be taken nice and clean, top of the waistband down under to top of the waistband in the back. And when you take that U-rise cleanly, that really sets just a nice, stationary, relatively finished measurement. They stay very close to it, barring a few pattern adjustments. And they'll take that, for example, 27-inch U-rise, and if you have that larger stomach and that bigger front waist measurement than the back waist measurement, so as I was demonstrating before, someone who's more like that, has maybe a larger belly on their front of them, that is where the front waist measurements get bigger and that angle really tilts down like that on the actual waist angle. So demonstrating on the U-rise, if this is the front and here's the back, they're going to take that normal U-rise that you measured on the client and actually adjust it like that. So the 27 inches stays the same. It doesn't get taller or bigger or smaller, but it stays relatively the same. And that nets out really beautifully in how they just redistribute the fabric, because someone usually like that with that bigger front, as you can see, I'm pushing out my rear end more. So I need a further distance of fabric in the back on those 27 inches in this example. I need less of it on the front. And when that becomes less in the front, where I don't need it, it still remains nice and clean. If someone has a normal waist that's just slightly angled, when their actual body is far more lowered in the front and a much more severe angle, then that fabric and that more than needed fabric in the front usually just gets pushed down by the posture or their actual stomach and gets pushed down like that, and it starts to get real creased and denty across the front. And it really looks sloppy and uncomfortable for any of our clients. And it's a really beautiful thing because especially someone with that more severe kind of lower waist angle, they're probably pretty used to buying things off the rack that look that way. So the fact that we can pinpoint and make that beautiful adjustment for them, not only to make it fit better and more comfortably, but also to look that much cleaner than they've ever had before, that's the power of the waist angle and getting it right. So to recap, front waist, back waist, we want to make sure we get that super clean after we set our anchor stickers or anchor strap, as I'm wearing right now, on our client. And the difference between those two will net out to a beautiful waist angle. If you've ever seen this on any of your previous clients, feel free to send photos over to me or shoot me a text or an email. I'm happy to look over them with you to see exactly what might have been going on, how it can be adjusted, or most importantly, how you can make this adjustment for a current client of yours that you already took body measurements for a long time ago and now are appropriately using finished measurements to make all of his garments. That's it for here on the masterclass. We'll jump into many other things and other videos that have to do with the waist and the U-rise, etc. But for the waist angle, really one of those beautiful gems that brings out a great fit that's truly only in custom and when people go custom and not found off the rack. Enjoy, and I hope this helps with your future fittings.
Spent half my life looking for you, just to find you here on a Friday night.